So, are you curious?
Welcome to the Curiosity Codex. I am your ardent enthusiast, Kyle Olson. As the year comes to a close, I wanted to put one last chapter in the 2022 section of the Codex. In an earlier episode, we had a conversation about weaponized nostalgia. And if there's one season where that practice is brought into sharp relief, it's the holiday season. From commercials wanting you to remember the family gatherings of your youth, to the constant barrage of stories where someone is striving to create the perfect Christmas, it's less about how you feel and more about remembering how you felt. And this season, we've got several shows and films that are trying to tap into that feeling. I've invited a couple friends to talk about them and how it made them react. But first, we're going to get into what they consider to be their personal holiday classics. So to discuss the subject of Christmas and holidays and nostalgia, I have assembled my own august panel. First, podcast impresario, Pete Wright.
I am singing Deck the Halls.
And affable man about town, Rob Kubasko.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. Hello.
So previously we had discussed Star Trek and Star Wars, and it's been this ongoing conversation about nostalgia and remakes and requels and all these things. And so what time of year is more apt for this exact thing than Christmas? Like what? When you think of nostalgia, it's almost you can hear the sleigh bells ringing because the whole idea of like the Christmas special is to try and bring you back to the place when you loved Christmas. So like obviously this is another one of those like potentially hot button topics things because I think people get a little bit, sensitive about Christmas. Maybe thinking their Christmas is the Christmas and that kind of thing.
Rob.
Wait, what? I'm sorry. Wait, what?
Oh, it's starting already.
Even it's not my Christmas. It's the world's.
It just happens to align with mine.
Yeah,
So before we get into that, like heavily into the discussion, let's step back a little to sort of get a level on the room. So I assigned you both some homework because I wanted to know a little bit about what Christmas media things get you in the holiday spirit. Like what are the things that you really you go to? What you have to watch every year in order to sort of have that period? So I asked you to do a couple movies and a couple of television shows. So let's start with the movies. So Pete, what are your two? Well, you can talk about one and then introduce the other one. You don't have to just put them both out there. But what are the two holiday movies that sort of break? And I know this is like, as a movie person, this is like picking your favorite child or whatever. But
it is. It's very, very difficult. Well, one.
So that's easy. You don't have to rank them.
Yeah.
But like two examples.
One of them was easy because it is a legit like Christmas movie, and it is so very much a part of my youth. Every year on Christmas Eve, my parents and I would sit down and watch National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation as soon as it was available on VHS. And then that tradition carried on for my family. So when my wife and we got married, we settled in, and that was a tradition. I said, I'll do whatever you want to do for your traditions, but this one's mine. Christmas is Christmas Vacation.
Eve.
Yeah,
wow.
Christmas Eve.
Okay.
And then, as my kids aged, it was the thing we did while we were doing our last preparations, preparing to go to bed, setting out cookies. Like we watched this movie right after the kids went to bed. And now the kids watch it with us as they're, onward toward adulthood. And they get as much of joy out of it as we do. So that's the first one. It is about Christmas, set at Christmas, and it means Christmas to me. And I know that's bonkers probably to a lot of people, but I have a feeling it's gospel to many others.
Wow. So, okay.
That's one. Do we want to round robin it a little bit? And I'll shut up now for.
Sure. Okay. Now let me just ask a follow-up thing. Like, does it still have is it still funny?
Yes,
I mean,
it is still funny. But like so many things.
to you, I guess.
Kyle, yes, to me. But like so many things, what it means to us while we're watching it, it's less funny than immediately before and immediately after we watch it. Because before leading up to it, we're already recounting our favorite moments and accents and finding the burnt shape of the cat under the chair and the squirrel and all the things that are so great about that movie. Then we watch it and it's fine. And then afterward it's hysterical because we're reenacting it again. It's like that the spirit of that movie brings us together as a family through comedy. And I think that's the spirit of Christmas.
Okay. Wow. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Rob, what's your first one?
Okay, this is tough. There's a whole lot of honorable mentions in this that I hope we'll have time to get to. Yeah. But I will tell you, for me, and it is not a thing that we do every year. It has to be Christmas Eve and stuff. Usually the house is busy with family and stuff, so we don't get to do it. But somewhere around Christmas or leading up to it, yes, we will watch A Christmas Story multiple times.
This is when it starts.
And I'm telling you, and here's the reason why. And we'll have a lot to say about this later because things have changed, which you will be shocked by. But here's what I love about A Christmas Story. It is my parents' Christmas. I feel when I get to watch that, I get to see a little bit of what my parents' Christmas was like because A Christmas Story is roughly late 40s, early 50s, somewhere around there, I think is what that time is that's depicted in the movie. And so I know my dad has gotten a kick out of it because it's like, okay, yeah, that was kind of like stuff I remember at Christmas. And there are the catchphrases and the moments and the things we find funny, right? And it's interesting because that movie came out. This was not a big deal when I remember when it came out. I don't remember it coming out because it came out the same year as Return of the Jedi,
right?
1983. It did well,
did all right.
But then it hit. I remember friends quoting it in high school.
Yeah.
So about 6-7 years later, and then it hit a certain level of this is a cultural thing.
Yeah.
So
I think that was sort of the TBS effect.
It must have been
in the same way that like Shawshank became a thing just because it like hit it was shown on a regular basis. Right. And so it sort of became part of people's lexicon as opposed to having to go and seek it out.
And it's permeated as a movie we watch because there are just the funny moments that I laugh at. Maybe not everyone in the family laughs at. It has taken new meaning because here my wife is of Asian descent. We always get to laugh at the ending at the Chinese restaurant. We always laugh about the Chinese turkey, right? We totally kind of get a kick out of it. My wife is not too fond of it in other parts, but but the plot will thicken on this. But for me, it's A Christmas Story.
Okay, well, I would say I would put those two like of a piece. Yeah. Like those two, I think are very matchy in terms of like idea and sentiment and stuff too, which we'll talk about sort of the meat of the thing. Okay, so then back to you, Pete. Then what's your second?
Well, the other one, this was harder because as I started thinking about specific movies, it all came back to kind of the themes in the movies, the collection of movies that I like, and so I'm going to go with that last moment when Holly McClane punches William Atherton and he looks at the camera and says, "Did you get that?" And then Argyle lets John and Holly into the limo and they drive off through the destruction that was Die Hard to let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, right? Which is fantastic. And I think it encapsulates what I love about certain alt Christmas movies, which is the characters are going through something horrific, whether it's like, whatever it is, they're going through something awful. And by going through that awful thing, they find each other and their meaning of the holidays again at the end, right? That to me is really special. And Die Hard is, it kind of exemplifies that spirit for me. And I know it is controversial. There are people who believe that it is not a Christmas movie, and I feel for those people to be just wrong about stuff sometimes. But to me, it is a really satisfying experience. And that final shot, let it snow, as they drive off through a clear skied Los Angeles night is just perfect for me.
Okay. All right. I say I would agree with that one. I think I'm of that camp as well. Yeah. What about you, Rob? What's your second?
Wait, can I just say something? Anybody who wants to say that it's not a Christmas movie, ho, 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 I have a machine gun too.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Come on. What are you talking about? Of course it's a Christmas movie. Yeah. It's a great Christmas movie.
Yeah.
It's no. Let me tell you this. Here you go. I was going to bet. I'm glad you went first because my number 2 is tied. Die Hard is one of them.
Yeah.
The other one is again a movie that is not necessarily a Christmas movie, but it is the movie that being one of my favorite movies, I watch at Christmas simply because it's set in the winter, which is The Iron Giant.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I really do.
Okay.
That is, to me, must-watch haven't watched it previously over the course of the year, that is the movie that I darn well try to make sure I get in to get myself in the holiday spirit. There was some TBS or one of them tried to do Iron Giant marathons at one point, I think, a few years ago. And it doesn't, and there's the Christmas Vacation and the Christmas Story ones now too. But yeah, my second one is, and then the rest are all after that. It's all the usual suspects. But to me, that is a.
You watch The Usual Suspects at Christmas? Wow.
Well, if you see, there's a sequel. There's a sequel. It's the
super subtle.
I love it.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so then let's switch over to television shows. Now, this is what I wanted to do, as opposed to having like the movie essentially is trying to emulate a mood for a particular amount of time. I don't know if there was a real Christmas spirit to Die Hard or if we just imbued it with that, but that's regards. But the first two you guys mentioned both have Christmas in the title, like they're intended to that. But with a television show, you're spending your time, the whole year, sometimes years, sometimes decades with these characters. And they also are celebrating the holidays from time to time. Now, by the rules of scheduling, they're probably usually shooting them in like August. But what then of the television shows that you've seen do you think really caught the Christmas spirit and then, had managed to preserve it over time? Like some Christmas specials have not aged terribly well. So I'm hoping you guys pick some ones that did. So let's reverse the order then. So Rob, what's your first television episode?
And as soon as you said this, I started to tear up because this is the preeminent episode for me. Season 1, episode 10 of The West Wing.
Oh,
it's an episode entitled In Excelsis Deo.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It is the greatest episodic television Christmas episode of all time. You can fight me, but I gotta tell you, that scene where Toby gets confronted in the Oval Office, and the thing I love about that is this was intentional. The president, okay, for those of you who haven't seen the show, right? The president, played by Martin Sheen, he's Catholic. He's getting a little curmudgeon-y here at this time of year. Mm-hmm. Toby has basically pulled strings in the president's name behind his back to get a military funeral with all honors for a homeless vet who had died wearing a coat that he had given away. And the moment where Martin Sheen looks at him and he's like, well, what, should we do this for every homeless vet we find? And he's like, yeah, certainly we should. Right. I hope so. And there is this moment where Martin Sheen plays it because literally I can tell you what's going on in Jed Bartlett's head in that moment is Christmas. And I got schooled by a Jew again. It is so wonderful. And then when they go to leave and Mrs. Lanningham is like, after she scolded Toby and is like, can I come? When you know that character lost two of her sons in Vietnam. Yeah. Let me tell you, when those strings of Little Drummer Boy kick in, that is golden television. Yeah. That episode
is Sorkin at his most powerful.
At his best, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I can say.
Personally, I love that episode. I think it's fantastic. My favorite of the West Wing Christmas things is actually the next year, second thing, because that's where Josh is dealing with PTSD essentially from the shooting, all that stuff. Yeah. And that's where one of my favorite moments of all time is Guy Falls in a Hole speech. And that happens with the Christmas tree behind it and them playing and all that kind of stuff.
They did good stuff. Yeah. He was doing good stuff.
Yeah. Like Aaron Sorkin, he can take those iconic things and just rework them into a new way. Yeah, it's good stuff. Good choice. All right, Pete.
I will say that was on my list, and so I'm glad it got taken. That is, I'm glad that's represented. I'm gonna go. So now I have 3 left. So if we get to the last one and it hasn't been called yet, then I might just scream it out, even when it's not my turn. Okay. I'm going to start with a season 4, episode 5 episode, which is timey-wimey and time travel-y, and it is from the show Lost.
Oh. Okay.
What do you think about that?
I thought that was going somewhere else.
I know, me too.
This is a whole show that is dedicated to keeping people apart from one another. And at Christmas time, we are introduced to an 8-year time gap between my favorite couple on the show, which was Desmond and Penny. Oh. And in this episode, Desmond gets to call Penny after begging 8 years prior for her not to change her phone number. And he calls her, and they are reunited. And she is standing there in front of the Christmas tree, and it's like the most extraordinary gift to be able to talk to one another. And all of this is overlaid on the other Desmond leaving at the same time. Like, it is just very complicated, but it was extraordinary television. And I felt like it was so incredibly rewarding that this show, again, dedicated to losing people, would take the Christmas episode and find them again. I thought that just was so touching. And it is one of few episodes that I have watched multiple times of that show. I think it's just wonderful.
That is one of my favorite, and I'm with you on that too. I'm showing it to my teenage daughter right now, and so we're actually have just gotten to the last season. So we watched the first episode of the last season. She's like, "What is going on?" I was like, "Yes, take that feeling and hold on to it, because it will find a place in your heart and live the rest of your time." But Desmond was on, and that's the thing. It's interesting is that. As we were watching the first season, I was like, none of my favorite characters are here.
Yeah. Isn't
like
that weird?
All the people that I really love in that show don't show up until so much later.
Yeah. Until like season 4, right? Yeah. Like season 3 or 4. Like it was it's really interesting.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's a good trend. I would never have thought of that, but yeah. So yeah, I'd say took us on your intro, took us on a little bit of a journey.
I'm so curious. Where did you think I was going?
Yeah. So are you taking us back to that place?
Well, no, I thought you were going Doctor Who. I thought you were going to pick a Doctor Who Christmas episode.
Yeah.
No, that seems like something I would save that for you.
Well, no, okay, and those are tied as my third options. But I got to tell you, there's a much more modern episode that is in constant rotation during the holidays.
Okay.
Season 2, episode 4, a little episode of Ted Lasso called Carol of the Bells.
That's the one.
Gosh,
that's the one.
Yeah.
Which is outstanding. And I didn't know this when I was kind of looking this up, right? Did you know that was a late addition to the season?
Oh. Yeah.
Because they had only been originally greenlit for 10 episodes. They had spec'd them out, done everything, producing, and then they're like, oh no, let's do 12. And they're like, well, what are we going to do? And one of the options was, well, let's do this Christmas episode. And dang, that episode is fantastic. The scene is the one that gets me is when he takes Roy Kent takes his niece to the door to tell the boy who's been making fun of her, be the better person. You've hurt my feelings. Apologize. That is unbelievable. The shot down the dining room table with the whole. It's all of it. It's amazing. We're gonna watch it again, and we'll watch it multiple times this season. It's fantastic.
That one has the line that has stuck in our family, which is when Kelsey turns around and says, "I'm sure you don't need to get rid of your dog. I'm sure the doctor has a solution because science is real and it's Christmas." we just die every time.
It's awesome.
It's such a great episode because as opposed to like nothing against the West Wing episode, but that's like a Toby focused episode.
Yes.
So Toby has a great, has a very moving Christmas that changes him.
Right.
But then like the thing about the Ted Lasso Christmas that's so amazing to me is that everybody's at their best.
Yeah.
Like in a massive ensemble show, like they keep adding more characters and they're just as fascinating. Everybody gets a great moment where they get a chance to shine. Even the players who only maybe might have 2 or 3 lines. Yeah. They still get to have that little like, oh, I didn't get to go home for X, Y, or Z. Like, so you know what their story is all the way. And I think, in a show full of MVPs, I like Higgins has some of the best moments in that. When just the moment of him remembering where everyone is from is such like a wonderful Christmas. Like, oh, right. Like this is a good dude doing something incredibly nice.
We're not gonna demonstrate change in characters. We're just gonna show you the best of people as someone for you to aspire to. Yeah. Right. As the viewer, like we watched that about Higgins. Like, oh, I should take better care with names. You know what I mean? Like there's just no chance to think otherwise. So yeah. Does that mean
right.
I get to go now? And that means
Yes.
all of my picks have now been covered. Thanks to Rob. So thank you, Rob. I would like to go back in time to.
Oh, you didn't have that quote memorized? You had actually done.
I would like to go back. Yeah, good lines. Season 1, episode 11. It is called My Own Personal Jesus. That is an episode of Scrubs.
Yeah.
There's so much. I really love this and this episode because it's one of those episodes where Turk is incredibly enthusiastic about Christmas and his beliefs and his God and all of the things that make Christmas for him. And he is beaten down by medicine on Christmas Eve. He's just destroyed by it. And at the end, no matter what people do to kind of show him that all these coincidences at the hospital are really good and you're doing fine. And he's like, no, I'm not going. I'm not even going to mass. Like I'm done. I'm never going again. I'm exhausted. So many people have been left hurting. And the final sequence where Turk runs across the hospital to Nina Simone's Sinnerman and helps deliver this baby under the Christmas tree, under the star that he believes is the star that's guiding him on Christmas, the Christmas star. And he delivers his baby. All the coincidences come into play, and it kind of resolves in this like, oh, we can find our spirit and our faith, and that's why we're in medicine too. And so, it is. I think in season 1, the best of this show that uses sarcasm to deliver heart more effectively. And I think it was an episode to be very, very proud of. Plus, it gives us Banana Hammock, which was another staple of when we don't know what to say. This is what we say in our family is Banana Hammock. So season 1, episode 11 of Scrubs.
That's great. I hadn't even thought about Scrubs in a long time.
Awesome.
That's the one we tried to show to Zoe, to my daughter, and she was like not into it. Like,
yeah.
The first couple episodes of
TV in
Scrubs
4:3 is tough.
Yeah, it's tough.
It feels old.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So, Rob, what's your second one?
So,
or did I do that? No, I did already, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I went backwards. Yeah,
I had my second.
So I have just as a left field one. One of the weirdest things, and then we're going to sort of dig into the meat of it. But there was one Christmas episode that I would never have expected to actually be a touching, moving Christmas thing that I think about every Christmas. So weird. It's Special Agent Oso. So this was a show on Disney Junior. It was Sean Astin, and he was a bear secret agent. So I watched this with my kids. Obviously, I was a little too old for it. Just watching that. So I mean, like the premise of the show is basically like this girl can't tie her shoes, so they deploy Special Agent Oso with all this technology and stuff to go and help this kid do a thing. So that's every episode is basically that. Like the kid is going through just a basic kid crisis. Special Agent Oso flies through the air and then comes down and helps the kid do whatever it is that they're trying to do before that. And usually and they do it in a spy motif in terms of like, oh no, like the bus is coming down the street. Oh, so you only have 10 seconds. And he's like, as he's trying to, tie this kid's shoe or whatever it is. So like they do a whole thing. And Sean Astin's fantastic. So it was one of these like harmless, nice Disney shows that you can just have on and the kids would like it. So I used to watch my daughter. And then the Christmas special came. And so I'm probably going to get choked up just talking about it because it was such a sniper shot that I had no idea was coming. And it's the same thing. It's like, Oso's trying to have the perfect Christmas and stuff. And he's running and he's like, but he's also trying to do his job. So he's like, he's super busy. So he's like going around doing stuff. And then all of his like people, like his support team essentially are working on a Christmas surprise for him, and he doesn't know what it is. So he's busy the whole time, and now he's thinking, "Oh, I ruined Christmas because I had to work. Essentially, I didn't get to do all this stuff." And he shows up at the headquarters and finds every kid from the entire run of the show is there to celebrate him and like cheer because he helped them. Now they're there to like thank him and give him like, basically gifts and stuff too. But it's like literally all like you helped me tie my shoe. You helped me pack my bag. You helped me make a sandwich. Like all the kids are there. And I was like, oh, I didn't know. Oh. Like this show, this disposable show had a sense of continuity and history and actually went and no, it meant something. What you did meant something to these kids. I was like, oh wow, I didn't expect emotion from Special Agent Oso. But like every Christmas, I think about that, him coming into the room and all the kids being there. It's like, oh, okay. So yeah. So this is where things get interesting at Christmas time, especially with these Christmas stories, is that there is, like, when we talk about weaponized nostalgia, like this is exactly that. I mean, this is essentially they're trying deliberate, as opposed to having the emotion sort of be a secondary or afterthought or everything. Like, you know, as we talked a little bit about the sort of cynicism that comes along with some of the Star Wars projects, where it's like they're specifically playing chords that they know will resonate with you. This is specifically aimed at your heart, at your nostalgia and stuff too. So like sort of the two main sort of tent poles for our conversation are going to be Spirited, which is a new version of Christmas Carol, is it Another Christmas Story or Christmas Story?
It's a Christmas Story Christmas.
Christmas Story Christmas. That's what it is. Right. Christmas Story Christmas, which are both deliberately trying to harken back to Christmas stories that are known and loved, and to try and sort of get that feeling. And so I did not watch Christmas Story Christmas because, as many longtime listeners will know, I hate A Christmas Story. I think I saw it, once, and I was like, this is not for me. This is the nice way of me saying that. So I did not watch it because I don't ever want to watch Christmas Story again, and I certainly don't want to watch a sequel to it. But I know both of you did. So you're going to be leading more of this discussion because it's my show. I took a stand. But I did watch Spirited, and I have a couple of things of that. So let's talk about that.
Where do you stand, though? Where do you stand on Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special?
Oh yes, we can. Yeah, that, and
can we throw that in?
Include that one too. Yeah, I watched that one as well, and let's talk about that too, because that is a little bit different, because it's trying to harken back to those sort of Christmas special, like the Star Wars holiday special, and that, but not specifically referencing that too. So yeah, we'll include that in our discussion too of the sort of three big time new nerdy Christmas things that are happening this season.
Can we do A Christmas Story Christmas first?
Yes, that's what I was hoping to do. So I say it was. Pete had that as his pick, but you seem like you have a lot to say. So
I want to say
start
this.
With that. So first of all, before you get into the new one, what is your feeling on A Christmas Story? Like Pete was very clear, and so was I. Well, how do you feel about Christmas Story, the original?
Oh, well, it was my first pick on the movie that we watched for Christmas. So yeah, okay. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love it. Because again, I take it as that it's a look into my dad's childhood, and I like the whole, hey, guess what? Without that movie, you don't get the Wonder Years. So you know what I mean? Like, because that was clearly influenced, the narrated sort of like childhood experience, right? So that would be my take on that.
You might have Stand By Me as part of it. But,
okay, maybe that too, but it's Christmas. So here's
want to see a dead Santa?
Yeah. Here's my talk about nostalgia. So I think anytime you try to make things that are trying to really reap this nostalgia that we have, you have a minefield to go through. And the minefield is one of three things: style, story, and scenes. Meaning you're either going to try to retell the same story, you're going to embody a certain type of style that you're trying to hit on the buttons of this, or you're just going to go ahead and remake shot for shot scenes from whatever this thing is you thought you loved. And here's the deal. Any type of nostalgia pool is a combination of those three things. The ones that fail are the ones that go overboard, right? Yeah. I mean, like, they just go nuts doing it. So here's what I want to tell you about A Christmas Story Christmas, which my wife and I watched. Halfway through this, I turn to my wife and go, this is exponentially better than I expected.
Oh.
And my wife says,
let me just say, what did you expect?
I thought it was going to be cornball and silly and ridiculous.
Okay.
I thought it was going to be a waste. If for no other reason.
Did you expect it to be, like you were said before, sort of a remake?
I expected it to be a shot for shot, beat for beat, total remake of the original. Yeah. And I thought that this was just the lowest hanging fruit. This is fruit on the ground for HBO Max. And the fact that they even still released it meant, I don't know, because who knows what's going on HBO Max these days. But I will just tell you that if you go right now on your HBO Max app and you go through the stuff that has been recently released, it's at the end of all the tiles.
Yeah.
So I went in with low expectations. Halfway through the movie, I say, wow, this is exponentially better than I expected. And my wife said, who's not a fan of the original movie, said, I love this movie.
Oh.
And let me say that by the time we got to the end, there were a few moments I actually teared up, which I don't do in the original. It is spectacular. It is spectacular because it doesn't. Yes, there are the moments. They capture a moment, and in the credits, they'll show you the shot that they were recreating with the original, but they don't do it to where they've ruined it. They haven't ruined the moment. They've just shown that in life, there are moments that you will remember because you lived them as a child, right? This it's outstanding. It never flubs up in terms of the nostalgia pool. It doesn't do any of the really dumb things you think it's going to do to make it bad. And there are genuine moments that I was like, holy cow, you guys, like, this is better than the original. I can't believe I said this. But honestly, and yes, maybe it's because it does take place in 1973. And I distinctly remember many of the things that it shows from the 1970s. So it might be my rememberies and not my dad's that I'm like, oh, wow, this is actually great. It's a class. It is literally a exhibit in how you pull nostalgia and do it well. Pete, have I oversold it?
Well, I don't want to. I don't want to like as we say. I don't want to yuck your yum, and I don't think I will. I don't think I share the same exuberance, but also note, and I have to say, just for the record, in terms of a spoiler, my dad died at Christmas last year, and this movie is about Ralphie's dad dying quite suddenly. I have to say that out loud because it kicked me in the groin very hard right up front because I'm processing that actively going into the holiday season, having just done Thanksgiving, the first one without dad. And that's very hard. So it was a struggle to get through the first act of this movie. And then we started chuckling a bit, and there are some fun, like, things around the family. Now, knowing my allegiance to National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, there are many scenes that are direct crossovers. Like Peter Billingsley, who is screen story credit for this movie with Nick Schenk, is and also plays Ralphie and played Ralphie as a kid. So he loved the story and writes it again himself, the sequel. He clearly loved Christmas Vacation too, because there's the crazy sledding scene, there's the Christmas tree scene, there's all the scenes that are there. And I don't think they're done as well, but they are done earnestly. And that is the one thing I can give for this movie, is that it is an earnest movie, and it is full of, like, when the laughs come, they are heartfelt laughs for me. Like, they are, it is a movie that knows what it wants to celebrate. And when it hits those, like, for example, the kids who are getting bullied by the bullies on the snowmobile, because snowmobile keeps driving over their snowmen. So they build a snowmobile or snowman around the tree trunk, so that the kids run it. It is comic. It's comic goodness. Like, you know, it satisfies that funny and yet vindictive bone in us. And we all laughed at some of those bits. And by the end, to Rob's credit, by the end, my God, I did not expect to feel the way I felt for a movie that largely I felt middling about. The end kicked me in the teeth. Like, it was a blow to the groin, then a blow to the teeth. And the middle was just kind of soggy middle. But I could not believe how I felt. Like, I couldn't believe.
You're never going to get your quote on a DVD cover. Things like that.
A kick to the groin and a blow to the teeth.
However, you probably could get posted up higher on Rotten Tomatoes. So, you know. Maybe you're more new media than I am.
All right.
No, you know what? I will tell you this. Okay, and first of all, just a side note, I have not experienced what you experienced, but my wife did, because, like, I'll never forget this. Like, 2 weeks after her father passed away, we go and, like, okay, I'm going to cheer you up. Let me take you to a movie, and we went to go see Happy Gilmore.
Oh my God!
And I'm just going to tell you, peace. Like, I mean. we got it, right? Like,
unexpected consequence.
Yeah,
Well,
like totally didn't know. Well, and by the way, because they've teased it, and again, okay, we're minor spoilers here. They teased that the old man had passed in all the trailers.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize the movie was going to begin the way it did, which you need to see it because that was shocking. Like, I did not expect that.
Yeah.
But the thing that you get in at the end is to see Ralphie's his moment where he actually gets what he wanted, but in a different route was so overjoying. It was just filled with joy. And his moment with Farkas, which is the bully from the original movie. I mean,
it's extraordinary.
That was stunning.
Moments of redemption. Yeah.
No, there are moments in this movie that have no rhyme or reason to be in A Christmas Story Christmas.
Yeah.
Like, you literally will go, what movie is this? Like, what am I doing here?
And this is a point I'd like to lodge now in favor of A Christmas Story before we talk about Spirited. This movie's third act is very efficient in terms of resolving all the threads very quickly, neatly, satisfactorily, so that by the time we get to the end, we feel rejuvenated, at least I feel sort of rejuvenated and like emotional, but open and not exhausted by its efforts to end. And I just want that out here because it's important when we talk about this next movie. I think it is. I think it is a movie that it's actually, if predictably, certainly efficiently and well constructed. It is a competent movie that delivers where it needs to deliver. And so in that regard, I think it's good. And I am not the raving fan of A Christmas Story that Rob is, but I'll tell you, right when I finished this movie, I thought, man, we should go watch the other one. Like, it felt of a piece to the first one. And that I think is not damning it with faint praise at all. Like it's solid.
Okay.
Totally.
Now, are you, I guess, as someone who's not a fan of Christmas Story, and I don't want to yuck anybody's yum, I'm just, it's everybody has their own individual things, but are you able to like articulate why it is that you enjoy it? Or is it one of those things that like, it was so fundamental in when you watched it that it just like, it is, as opposed to like, oh no, it's actually good because X, Y. I don't need you to like give me a full review. I'm just curious. Do you have a sense of this is a good Christmas movie because X, or is it just like, no, it was always part of my Christmas. And so it's part of my, core Christmas movie DNA.
Wait, are you talking about the new one?
No, I'm talking about the original one. Like just for that point. I mean, like not even like old versus new or accessibility. I'm just curious, like your individual feeling about Christmas Story. Is it like I have movies like Return to Oz is one of my favorite movies, but like I can't defend it. Like I can't like sit you down and go like no, it's really good. Like because I know it's built into my DNA. Like it was one of the movies that changed me, and so I know that by the standards of it. I mean, I was on a podcast defending it too, and they're both like, really, this movie? And it's like, well, yeah, but I've accepted that. But there are like Die Hard, I think, is a movie that stands up. That anybody, you can watch it now and it's still like is solid even here as I was talking about this in 2022. Do you feel that way about Christmas Story, the original Christmas Story?
Yeah,
I'm going to say you were first, Rob, just because you have the floor. But
no. A Christmas Story has always connected to me because I am an incessant daydreamer, and I am an incessant daydreamer to a insane level.
Yeah,
and what that shows in A Christmas Story when Ralphie has his moments to make himself feel better or to pump himself up, that insanity that happens, I can relate to that immediately, and I totally get it. It is what has always drawn me to that storytelling. And I love the way he does it. And the moment that they do it, they don't overdo it. But the moment they do it in the sequel, we literally had to rewind it because it is so brilliantly shot. That's all I'm going to say on that.
And I realized that it was like 10 embedded questions, Pete. But like, what is your thought on my weird rambling question?
Well, yeah. Okay. So I think I have to start with first. I think it's the holidays, and probably should have said this at the beginning that I think, and I'll speak globally. I think we as an organism are more generous with our willingness to accept manipulation in terms of nostalgia at the holidays than we watched this movie in June. So I'm already primed for it. So it's set me up. I think Peter Billingsley is actually, a competent choice maker in terms of the movies that he chooses to be involved in, whether he's on as a producer of Iron Man, for crying out loud. He directed Couples Retreat, which I May Be an Island. I thought that movie was funny. So he's involved in some interesting things, and you can feel some of his DNA, that sort of DNA also in this movie that he clearly loves very much. I think I don't have the connection that Rob does to the first one. I think it's funny because of its bits, because of the bits that make me laugh. I think as a whole, it kind of leaves me lacking. So I remember the bits. The thing about this movie is it's talking to me. It's talking to the middle-aged guy who just lost his dad and would love to be a writer of a 2,000-page book that people actually like. It's talking to me directly through Peter Billingsley. And that is I know my wife and my son, we watched this together last night, and I know they liked it very much, but I don't know that they understood it the way I feel like I did. And I kind of hold court with this movie in a different way. So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it did. I was more interested in the feeling, because sort of feeling is what I'm sort of going as we sort of pivot, because I guess this is the weird subjective part of this, of the nostalgia thing, of the intentional heartstring thing, is that I feel very sensitive to that in these movies, in that I feel like there's a lot of it there's the crass commercialism part of it. There's like, hey, we got to make a movie. Let's make a movie at Christmas kind of thing. And then there's the ones that I feel like are actually have something to them. So one of the reasons I don't like Christmas Story and I don't like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation is that I feel they are cynical movies. I feel like to me, once again, this is all subjective. That's what this whole thing is about, is the subjectivity of it. I feel they have a mean heart. And there's a couple of Christmas movies that are very popular that I feel that same way, where I watch them and I'm like, I don't understand as a comedy, they're okay. But when you try and have it that also be a Christmas thing, I put them up there with Christmas with the Cranks, where it's just look, people doing wacky stuff at Christmas, being terrible to each other, but they all learn something in the end. I'm like, no,
Bad
thank
Santa.
you. But that being said, I don't need a full-on thing of sentimentality. I really like a bit of sour with the sweet. I like a little bit of something like that. You get into some darker stuff before you sort of pivot out of it. As we're going to talk about, Christmas Carol is exactly that. It is a haunting ghost story of a terrible person who then is turned around by these kind of things. And so I like a Scrooged, where you get to actually see this is a bad person. This is a person doing terrible things. Of course, my favorite Christmas Carol adaptation is Muppet Christmas Carol, because I think it does the best. It's the best music. It has Michael Caine doing one of the best Scrooges ever. And there just happens to be chickens and seeing vegetables around him. But he doesn't care. He's there to deliver a top tier performance. He is going through these honest emotions. And so so every year there seems to be another adaptation. And I've watched diligently. I've watched a bunch of the Scrooge, even the really, really dark one that came out a couple of years ago with Guy Pearce, where I think the movie starts with someone literally pissing on Marley. He's pissing on Marley's grave, and they cut to Marley in the grave being pissed on.
Oh my God.
That's how dark it
I did
starts.
not see that.
Oh yes. It gets into a forced prostitution. It's a Christmas romp for the whole family. But I get that.
Rob, I'd like your full review by 8 a.m.
They oversteered like that. Okay, all right. They went way too bad. So now that brings us to the newest adaptation of A Christmas Carol, and that's Spirited. So Spirited is a Apple TV Plus original, so I know a lot of you probably haven't seen it. But I would say, for the $5, the payment, it's worth it. Like it's like just even for just that, and we could provide you with a list of how to spend.
And Ted Lasso, you get to watch Ted Lasso.
And
you've already got two. Right.
I mean, there's a bunch of there's like enough to justify your $5 as you're home, hopefully on vacation for a certain amount of time. But this one, so I'm curious your thoughts on this because I have not talked about. I watched it last night before we recorded. I have not talked about anything to anybody, so I'm sort of coming into this completely new. So I guess then we'll start with Pete then. So what was your initial thoughts? Like how did you feel about Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell in Spirited?
I love your position on the salt and the sweet. And in fact, when we watched this movie, we watched it as a whole family. My daughter watched it and she did not care for it because Ryan Reynolds' character is the most reprehensible version of this as a modern guy.
Yes.
A modern business like archetype that we've seen. And he's so hateful. Like this is Up in the Air, the musical, right? This is like lobbying for he is a bad guy. And I think he plays it wonderfully. And if you get yourself out of that, like if you're for me, I'm approaching it as a retelling of A Christmas Carol and as a musical, and the music written by the folks, the writing pair that did Dear Evan Hansen and La La Land, and like they know how to manufacture music that is specially tuned for my head. And this felt as jubilant and exuberant and an expression of all of those things as I've seen in a long time. I was thrilled with it. I was absolutely thrilled. We've had the soundtrack on rotation in the house for all over Thanksgiving week. It is we just think it is delightful. The only thing that I think I would have liked to see, even though Will Ferrell is a national treasure, he already has Elf. Like he already has one iconic Christmas movie. I think Hugh Jackman should have been in this one because Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, they're like, Hugh Jackman is a bona fide song and dance man, and to have these two together, that would. Did I do okay, Rob? Did I fix it?
Holy cow!
Because here's the deal.
Can we just shift to that multiverse? Because I really want to see that.
Dude.
When this comes to Broadway, just for like 1 month.
Yeah.
Put you in the lead.
Because this deserves to be a scene live. I think it would be delightful as a live.
I think so too.
My mind is blown away by that.
Yeah.
I'm just delighted I got to it first, Rob.
I'm almost like I am speechless. Well, continue because I don't want to interrupt where you were headed.
No. I mean,
it sounded like a mic drop to me.
Yeah, it was a mic.
Oh
my God. I mean, well, no. So here's the deal. Yeah. We've done this before. Did that fix it? It doesn't need fixing, really. I agree with you 100%. I loved it. My wife loved it. She loves Ryan Reynolds. Yeah. Fun. The only thing I had a negative on was tighter editing for the first 2 acts.
Yes.
It runs long. But when it feels it because you're like, and I was still into it because I'm like, I really love where this is going. There are some twists to the story, but I will tell you the greatest thing to me is, and I don't want this isn't spoilery because it's Christmas Carol. The idea that it's basically saying, and I don't know if you could get a better Christmas theme, is that, hey, change doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
That change actually happens in baby steps and you will always be taking a few steps back. And by the way, no one is irredeemable. Is maybe one of the most stellar takes on A Christmas Carol, dare I say, ever, because I think it is outstanding. If they would have just tightened up those first 2 acts, this is a classic. Yeah, this is a classic Christmas movie.
Yeah. I would agree with all that. That was my main problem with it is it doesn't know what movie it wants to be until about 45 minutes in, and then it goes, oh wait, this is the story we want to tell, and then it goes right because I'd say like the opening thing right up until Ryan Reynolds starts singing. I was like, ooh, this is rough. Like we're gonna really have to get through this. Like as much singing and dancing, sure, great, fine. Start off with a high energy number, great. I was like, okay, here we go again. Because the weird thing about these kind of movies is if it doesn't hit you, man, it's hard to get through.
Right.
In Christmas movies, especially, in the same way that if it's not your sense of humor, man, a comedy is a slog.
Yeah.
Like if you're not an Adam Sandler fan and you're at an Adam Sandler movie, man, that is a long 90 minutes of just like, so that was a joke?
Well,
so that was supposed to be funny?
I totally get that. I feel like I had my problem with the back end of the movie. Like this movie needed to end 17 times, and there was a song for every one of them. And I liked all the songs. That's the challenge. But and I think that might have been resolved had they tightened up the first 30 minutes. But man, because it's a 2 hour and like 10-minute movie, and you like by the end you feel those minutes go by.
Yeah, and this is part of the downfall of it being an Apple TV Plus Studios, whatever they thing is, that they sort of go, first draft good enough. Like there is a positive side to the studio system in that there's a lot of people would be like, we kind of have this down where like at this point this has to have, they have a way of like smoothing out some of this, and that's what I describe this movie as, is lumpy. Is that as you're going along, you're like, oh, now we're going to do this for a little while, but that doesn't mean anything. Now we're going to go back to here. Oh, we thought it was funny, so we just kept it in. It's like, oh, see, this is the director's cut. You really need someone to come in and trim out about 20 minutes of this movie.
That is a great way to imagine 100%. This movie. This is the director's cut.
Yeah, there's so many things in there that because when you find out that it's a buddy movie, it's like, oh, yeah, that's not how you make a buddy movie. Right. You have to show them it's because a buddy movie is a rom-com. Like you have to show them on parallel tracks, and then they intercede. Yeah. And then they are changed by that intercession. When you start out and you just have the main, like the guy for the first 15 minutes or whatever, then you assume the story's about the guy, but it's not. It's about the two of them. Isn't that interesting that like this is the same template of Elf? I thought that was kind of fascinating. Like they showed us so much of him as an elf before we get to the I see what you mean. Yeah.
The stuff with Dad, which is really the fish out of water stuff we came for. Right. It just was much more efficiently told. Yeah. Right. And some of that is music slows things down, especially when you're writing, when everything you write is a hook and not a transition. Right. That makes it hard because you have to have that. That's the thing about with a musical, especially. And I want to talk about specifically about this as a musical, is that you have to have a certain amount of songs that are helping to move the story forward and not stopping the story so the person can tell you how they feel. And that is exactly what this movie did. That's exactly what this movie does. And that's the difference between In the Heights and Hamilton. Yeah. You can see the progression where Lynn goes, oh, like one of my theater friends told me about the Park and Bark, which is basically like you put a character, put them on stage, and they just like throw exposition out, or just basically, this is the song about how I feel. Okay, you need those. You need absolutely this. Yeah. But every character can't have those, or else the story never actually gets moving. And there's a lot of those songs, and the songs are very good, but there's too many of them like in a row where it's just like, oh, now let's pull this bus over so I can tell you how I feel, and then we'll get back on the road. Well, it's the other option too. It's not about a lot of the songs in this are not to tell you how they feel. It's to make you laugh. They're just to be funny. And let's say you need those too. But it's the same kind of thing. If you're going to stop me to do that, but it's like you can do this while the story's still moving. Like you can have plot in your songs. It's okay. We're on board. Wait, can I tell you one thing though? When you were talking about if there's anybody who watches this and says, "Oh, well, Ryan Reynolds, he's too bad." As a guy who worked in politics for many years, those people exist. Right? Yeah, that is not a caricature. Yeah, at all. That's a real person. So don't think it's not realistic. Yeah. I think that's as a musical though, and like you said, the music is good. The music is great, and I immediately bought the soundtrack as well. Totally singable, the rest of the night I was walking around singing a couple of the things. It was like, just like, and I'd say, man, if you thought Octavia Spencer could only do one thing, God, she is
unbelievable. This movie
is now officially an extraordinary 2-trick pony. She has 2 very, very strong tricks so far, and I'm looking forward to more. She's great.
I know that.
You know what?
That song is like blew the roof off. Like I was like, I like. The Ryan Reynolds one was great too. Like his first song is amazing, and it just like it lifts the whole movie. But like her thing, I'm like, I didn't know that. I didn't know you had this gear.
That's
like,
another gear. Yeah.
It takes the movie into a whole another level of depth that I didn't really expect it from, sort of like the previews we had seen of just, it's 2 wacky guys being wacky at Christmas. And it's like, no, there's a lot more to this. And like you were saying,
the fact that Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds and Octavia Spencer and Sunita Mani and Tracy Morgan, like they all can sing.
Yeah.
Like there was no questionable voice in here. This was not Les Mis. Like, everyone brought it.
Yeah. And one of the things my wife said actually was no one sounded auto-tuned. Like when they're singing, it really sounds like Will Ferrell. It really sounds like Ryan Reynolds. And obviously as people who have done stuff with audio, we know there probably is some sweetening, but it never sounded like that sort of artificial, smoothed out, polished, sort of pop thing. Like a lot of times when there's a musical episode of television, you can tell like, oh yeah, these people didn't really sign on to be singers. Like this isn't Glee, but so they have to do a lot of tweaking, but it really sounds like Ryan Reynolds. It really sounds like Will Ferrell, and they're not trying to sing above or below their range. Like they did a nice job of orchestrating it. So like so you don't listen and go, ooh, didn't quite hit that note. Okay. They actually
I expected to say nice. That every time Tracy Morgan had, and he didn't have much. Didn't have much. But when he did, he actually sounded great.
Yeah. But like you said, but it did pull together. Like it really, like by the time it gets to the end thing, I really didn't see the ending coming. I didn't see I'm like, oh, we're going here. Okay. Yeah. All right. Like I'd say the whole sort of in what is a traditional structure, like basically Christmas Carol has a very rigid structure that everybody sort of follows and riffs on it. They kind of got into the third act and then it kind of started waving a bit. And I really enjoyed that because I was like, oh, okay, so his story's kind of done and now we're over, but it needs to, aren't we going to? So it was nice because there's a lot of unexpected twists and turns then in that third act, which, a lot of times by that point is just like, get to the gravestone. And that's really nice about this is when they get there, that wasn't the point.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But it's interesting also in the Apple Studios thing is that they seem to have a real interest in how things work. And maybe that's because it's built by engineers. And if you look at Ted Lasso being that thing, but like For All Mankind is very technical in terms of like how we get to space, how we get to Mars and stuff too. Luck, which was not a good movie,
terrible movie,
still was about like how does luck work? What are the people that go behind the scene, like this building of this? Like how does it work? And the people, the organization that does this thing. And now here we have Christmas Carol and like that. There's a structure, organization. It's how it worked. Like they're very interested in like the systems of how things go. I don't know if that's quite a thing for like a brush to paint the entire Apple Studios with, but 3, I mean, like, there's even a couple shows you could probably, sort of weave that into. Like, it does seem to be something that the stories they're interested in telling.
Well, my gosh, wasn't there
the history of the iMac?
Yeah. What was the other? It was the true crime pod. It was Octavia Spencer as a true crime podcaster. Right. The behind the scenes of a true crime podcast.
Yeah,
that's right, Ed.
Right. So I guess how would you rank it then in terms of Christmas Carol? Like there's been the Christmas Carol is one of those things that like every year it seems like there's 3 or 4 adaptations, Hallmark Channel versions or animated versions or whatever. How would you put this in terms of the Christmas Carol of it all? Or did it move it away enough that you don't even consider it sort of a Christmas Carol-ish story? Rob?
I guess Muppet Christmas Carol is still, I think, one of my favorites. I also like the episode of Doctor Who with Matt Smith when they did their take on it. So I have that up there.
Great one.
This is right up there too, but this is like almost a different column.
Oh, really? You think like it moves it enough?
I will tell you, I mean, because we'll watch this 2 more times before Christmas.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it was that enjoyable, and the ending is worth it. The ending, the last act, is so worth it in even getting through the first 2 acts that when it slows down, yeah, totally. We'll totally watch it again.
Okay. What about you, Pete?
Yeah, I'm not so much a classicist, but the 1951 Christmas Carol is the first one that I saw, and it's one I've watched a few times over the years, and I hold it in very high esteem. Albert Finney did a version that I was.
Yep. I've seen that one. I think that was the first one I ever saw.
Yeah.
It was kind of scary.
Yeah, pretty scary, and of course Bill Murray is as Scrooged is at the very top of the list. This one, I think, introduces so much of the kind of levity and the modern sentiment, and doesn't feel like it's going so far afield that it's not a Christmas Carol adaptation anymore, right? It doesn't cut so many holes in the narrative that, or in the fabric of the mythos that I lose track of it. I really think it's very, very good. And I'm with Rob. I mean, I can already tell you that this is a thing we're going to keep singing and watching year over year over year over year. We absolutely will. We already are. Like it became cemented in our rotation immediately.
Wow. Okay. It hit you big.
Yeah.
So then I guess let's just another high budget Christmas thing, which isn't quite an adaptation or anything, but it is very high profile, and that's the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. This is interesting because I find it hard to discuss it as a holiday thing, even though that's the main thing. Like I instantly go to my Marvel fandom brain. Like I'm having trouble with the whole like keeping the Christmas part of it on there. But let's just start with overall thoughts. Like let's start with you, Pete. What was your overall impression? How did you feel about the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday?
Well, you guys, come on. The opening rainbow special presentation logo had me. That was
had you not seen Werewolf by Night?
No,
they premiered that with Werewolf by Night, and that's actually Michael Giacchino wrote that music score piece for that. And that was the first time I ever saw that. But I absolutely love that, and I can't wait to see if they keep doing these things like that, so we can see that again and again.
Absolutely extraordinary, vibrant, and the throwback titles that were like they were doing them like on twos, like it just felt like they had the frame rates wonky. I felt like that from the jump, this was James Gunn writing me a love letter to my childhood self. And I thought that was really special. And so it put me, like when you talk about the willingness to be manipulated,
yes,
that open put me there very quickly. Like it set me in a place that asked me and was granted permission to manipulate me in that a very transactional sort of approach. And I thought it was really special. It was very simple. It's a very simple story, but it also gave me glimpses of these character relationships that we haven't seen. Mantis and Mantis's arc was actually moved forward in this thing that I think will pay off in a way in future Guardians properties. And I look forward to that. I think this was, I thought, a really special thing. And of course, they leaned in hard on the Kevin Bacon mystique, and he just loves nothing more than lampooning himself in these kinds of things, and I'm here for it. He was just great. So I'm big fan.
Okay, what'd you think, Rob?
Okay, strap yourselves in.
Okay.
He hated it.
Let me say a few things. I will agree to a very low level that there were some moments that were okay.
Okay.
But let me say this. I can actually more easily say it in what I think how this was created. I believe James Gunn wrote the script for this on a flight, probably going somewhere from one side of the country to the other side of the country, maybe 2 years ago. I don't know. I believe he submitted this to Disney, and Disney read it and said, he wants to make this? And then someone said, yeah, but maybe we need to greenlight it because he might go to DC. And someone else at Disney said, okay, fine, greenlight it. Let's see what happens. And he made it, and I watched it, And that's pretty much all I have to say about this.
Oh, Rob, Rob,
Okay.
how
This
are you
did-
bringing
Can I tell you this?
cynicism to it?
Do you remember what I
Wow.
started off? Let me tell you this right now. You remember what I started off and I said, you can go too far in certain things, right?
Yeah.
And one of them I said was style. And I get he's trying to channel Star Wars Holiday Special, right?
Okay.
Or something, right? Or something.
Yeah.
Maybe a Sesame Street episode or a Muppet Show Christmas episode. I don't know, right? Nothing. It did nothing. It did nothing for me. Why is Groot man in suit? Why?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I was like, did you just like bring the guy
what
from
happened?
California Adventure over?
Yeah, seriously. I demand answers on that because what is that, right?
The internet has taken to calling him Swole Groot.
Yeah, I'm sure. I couldn't deal with. I really had a tough time dealing with the non-cinematic look of this. And again, maybe because we're trying to stylize a holiday special.
Sure.
I just couldn't get into it.
Yeah.
Yes, there are moments. Pete, the cartoon at the beginning and the end. Yes, it did. I found that interesting. There are other things I enjoyed, but overall, more than once I went. Let me tell you, I felt watching this like I feared I would feel watching A Christmas Story Christmas.
Oh. Okay.
Fight me.
I don't. There's not enough material here to actually get into a real spirit.
No,
debate.
I mean,
seriously.
no,
like
of course.
you can if you want to we could throw down about Wakanda forever because there's a lot of stuff, but there's barely enough here for a.
I just felt this was. I mean, literally
it's so slight.
It just didn't seem like there was not much here.
Yeah.
It was really. There's a lot of filler.
Yeah.
The song part where they're singing the crazy song about.
I thought the song was great. You're not.
I agree with Pete. I think that song was great.
The dentist reference was funny.
Oh, we were
Yes.
dying of the
Yes.
song. And I don't know why the internet is up in arms about Man in Suit. It was a beautiful, completely 100% digital representation of Groot. And it was gorgeous. The motion, the way it moved, I thought it was fantastic.
Okay.
I'm glad it didn't
now-
come to Earth. That's
Now
all.
wait, I will defend. Now listen, it's not Groot. It's Son of Groot, right? Like I mean,
Right,
technically,
exactly.
this is
It's
not
Groot, Son of Groot.
right?
Yeah,
So
Groot
he
Jr.
could be different. This is a refrigerator Groot and not a Sequoia Groot. Okay, fine.
Swole Groot is
Yeah,
what they're
all right.
calling it. Right.
But I
Hitting the
just,
chlorophyll.
I mean, I don't know. It felt a lot of it just felt like filler and forced. And I'm just not. I'm unbelievable. I was not into it. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm somewhere. I guess I'm somewhere
we're
in the middle because
we're in a different universe right now in the multiverse. I'm telling you, there is a Rob. I would like to find the Rob that freaking loves this thing. He's out
Where is
there because his joy is what I expected on this.
He's still weeping. He's still weeping when Ralphie's talking to Farkas in an alley.
Yes, unlock that guy from the cabinet under the stairs.
I guess part of my problem with it was, I guess it's so James Gunn. Now I'm a James Gunn fan, but it just seems like they're like, I don't know, he's leaving anyways. Sure, just let him do whatever he wants. Because I'm like, wow, this is once again kind of like lumpy seems to be the thing. I was like, this is not well put together in terms of storyline.
I don't know what you were expecting, though. I have to say, I think both of you, just
plot-wise, I have no problem with the plot. I mean, it's ridiculous, but fine.
It's ridiculous. Yeah,
it's fine. I'm super happy that Palm got to be able to do. Mantis actually has a personality now. Thank goodness.
She could fight.
She got to do all stuff. What happened to Drax? What happened? When we introduced him, his whole thing was that he's stoic and doesn't understand metaphor. And that's where the joke comes from. Mm-hmm. When did he become just a dick? Because everything from that point, from Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I was like, wow, you're just mean and a dick all the time. And you get to say whatever you want because, that's just Drax. No, that's not.
He doesn't know any better.
Yeah, he does. That's the point. We've learned now he does know better and he just doesn't care. So he just gets to be an insensitive dick all the time and we're just okay with that now.
I
don't get
just
it.
didn't hear it that way. Like, I didn't hear him as a dick. Like, I actually heard Drax, and I worry that some of the, like, at least in sort of nerd
I think Dave
culture,
Bautista would agree with me because he does not like the way that Drax is written.
Yeah, I know. But I do think that there is something to this idea that understanding what is going on behind the scenes with James Gunn and his career trajectory toward DC influences how you might see this property. And had he never left, and had he never decided to go to DC, is there a universe there where that Kyle is hanging out with that Rob, and they're watching this thing with maybe a little bit more generosity?
Maybe, but if you go back and listen to Road to Infinity, the podcast that I created about the things, I had a lot of problems with Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and all those problems are in sharp display here. Like, the further it goes, the more it's like, oh, I don't like where you're going with this, and like there's a lot of problems, and that's the thing is, like, all the way through. I don't mind a character who's a curmudgeon, or like, you know, to go back to Buffy, the Cordelia of it all, where she speaks her mind, even though it hurt. Like, you know, the truth teller, all great, but like every time he opens his mouth, he's just going to say something stupid or mean, and I'm like, why? Like, because there's no redeeming quality on the other side of it, because there's no comeuppance. There's no like, oh, you know, Star-Lord needed to hear that. No, he just is there to just say mean things and dumb things, and that's it. That's his whole job.
I'm going to say this,
but
no.
Why do we need this?
No, it's gotten contorted somehow.
Yeah.
Let me remind you of the line, "I will be happy to die by your side today, and in the end see my wife and daughter too."
Right.
I mean, where's that character?
Where is that guy?
Because I mean, totally agreed. I still love Volume 1 and I love Volume 2, but I am really saddened to see what the Guardians became in Endgame, or Infinity War, certainly Love and Thunder.
Yeah. That's
horrible. And this did not this is not as bad as Love and Thunder in terms of their appearance.
Yeah.
But it's right under there.
Yeah, at this point, like I'm looking forward to the Guardians being done. Like, I was sad about Volume 3 being it for this group, and now I'm like, oh God, can we just have that? Like, can you just swap that with Ant-Man so we can just get it over with?
It's Gamora. Like, Gamora was the glue.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean,
yeah, that's a really very good argument to be made there, and I'm bummed that you guys didn't see it with the same kind of eyes that I did, because I did have that was my biggest problem with it, is that like when one of your two leads, like every time he opens his mouth, I'm like, ugh. everything he says, I'm like, oh man, stupid or mean, which is it going to be? Flip a coin, because those are the only two things he does the entire thing, stupid or mean. I think it's super possible that I didn't expect much from it. Like, I went in with the bar so low that I was really thrilled that it just was able to capture 10-year-old me. For it's just like not a lot of substance, and it just was what it was.
Oh, Kevin Bacon was great.
Yep,
I'll say, okay, Kevin Bacon, like you said, he came to play. He was having a good time, and I love seeing it. Palm, I thought, was fantastic, getting to do that kind of stuff. I like the feeling of like taking secondary characters, quote unquote, and then giving them like the lead for a thing. I think that was a brilliant choice in this. It's just that was the one thing I couldn't get past, is like every time it was like, oh, these two, like, really? I mean, I'd almost rather have Groot, because you could read into whatever you wanted in that case.
Yeah.
And also, I guess it's like I guess I haven't forgiven Star-Lord for messing up everything with Thanos. Like, you're doing all this work for him for what? Like, what has he ever done that you need to do all this work?
Haven't forgiven. Oh
no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I know there was multiple. I understand Doctor Strange's philosophy on this, even though there's a whole other can of worms. There's a present under the tree we don't want to open at this particular time. But okay, so obviously we're not going to settle everything here. But yeah, I didn't get any Christmas sort of vibe to it. I mean, it was nice and it was fine, but like it's not something I feel like I'm going to go back and watch again. I probably will just get that song, and that'll be enough for me.
Yeah, it's good. I liked that.
But it's the first sort of official. Aside from Iron Man 3, the first the most Christmassy of all of the Marvel properties in all this time.
That's that's how the bar we're willing to set. It is the most Christmassy of Marvel.
Iron Man 3.
Yeah. Iron Man 3, because Iron Man 3 is a Shane Black movie, so therefore it must be set at Christmas.
I almost said Kiss Kiss Bang Bang instead of Die Hard, so another Christmas.
Right. Or Long Kiss Goodnight, or Lost Boy Scout. I mean, the list goes on. Anyway, so okay, so as we sort of close down our discussion here, are there any unsung Christmas gems out there that you think that more people should be aware of, that they should direct their attention to this holiday season? Anything that you hold special or think was very well done that does not get a lot of attention or love out in the world? I'll let you think. I'll do mine and I'll give you a chance to, because I did not. This was a curveball I threw at you. One of my favorite gags of Christmas, and done very well in Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, is the alien who doesn't understand Christmas, or the outsider, and then they have to explain it, and it doesn't make any sense, and they are kind of in the same way that Jack Skellington, saying when he sets out to slay with his rain gear on, and like all that kind of stuff. I like the misinterpretation, and one of my favorite misinterpretations of it is Invader Zim. Invader Zim has one of the best Christmas specials because he hears the stories and comes to believe that Santa Claus comes as a conqueror. And so he actually shows up in a huge Santa mech suit or whatever, and they have a whole song that's "Bow down before the power of Santa, or be crushed beneath his jolly boots of doom." It's a ridiculous, over the top Christmas, especially in the way that only Vader Sim could do. I always really enjoy watching that too, because it's just completely misses the point, which is one of the best parts of Zim. So, do you have anything along those lines? It doesn't have to be nice. It can be, this was the worst Christmas special I ever saw.
No, wait, I just want to say, I still learn new things about you. I don't think I've realized the level of animation you have watched.
Oh, yes.
Because between Agent Oso or whatever, which
Special Agent Oso,
which you left out the point. He's a yellow panda with green accents.
Oh, yes. It is really inexpensive CG that they did, even for the time. Disney was definitely cutting costs. But Sean Astin's performance is magnificent.
Okay, I got two things. One, not necessarily Christmas. Well, yeah, because the ending, or is it Thanksgiving? I don't know. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yes.
Don't forget that.
It's more Thanksgiving, but I'll take it because it's holiday season.
Totally holiday season.
Yep.
And if you really want to rip your heart out with a very short animated film, when my daughter was young, we had the 2-disc set of Little Mermaid, and tucked on disc 2 was the experimental Disney animated version of The Little Match Girl.
Yeah.
And I
told the story of how my daughter stumbled on that in one of the shows, so I won't reiterate it here.
Oh, I don't know. That's how I stumbled onto it. One time we were just doing something. Morgan was young, and we were like, "What's this?" And I'm going to tell you, wow. Get the Kleenex or the paper towels.
Yeah, they Disney when they're going for it, man.
Yikes!
Your heart will be in their hand.
Yeah.
What about you,
Pete? We love watching the Christmas episodes of Things, right? As we talked about in the beginning, and we around here, for those who don't know, I talked about it a lot. I'm an acapella nerd, and so I love shows where people sing, and so I feel like it would be irresponsible of me not to call out the Glee Christmas episodes, because we're big fans of Glee, and I would say. Of all of they do Christmas episodes a lot in over the course of their run, and there is a big swing between the first Christmas episode, which I think they did in season 2, which was wonderful, and the last one, which was I think they even called it the previously unaired Christmas, where they actually, it was the most misguided and horrible thing that should have just stayed unaired. They actually, it was so bad. They have a character who gives birth to baby Jesus. They do the nativity, and they cast the young woman with Down syndrome as baby Jesus. It is just the worst of the worst. It is offensive around every corner. But they do a Christmas episode. That was season 5. They do a Love Actually riff in season 4's Christmas episode. season 3 is I think they do a black and white kind of Judy Garland style Christmas special, which is really, I think, a lovely kind of tribute. But the first one was season 2's, and that was a very Glee Christmas, and it was lovely and really showcased all of the various sort of talents nicely. So if you're a Glee fan, or even if you've never explored Glee, watch the first couple of seasons. And then it goes downhill from there. So hard. So hard.
As it often should at Christmas. So,
oh my gosh.
All right. Well, you guys for coming on to the Codex to talk a little bit about holiday nostalgia and the thing. And so I guess the only thing left to say is good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And that's where we're going to stop the conversation for today. Thanks so much for listening. This has been the latest chapter in the Curiosity Codex, but there are many pages left to decipher. We're part of the True Story FM family of podcasts. Find out more about us at truestory.fm. Our theme music is Intrusion by Severed Personality, aka Kevin MacLeod. The voice of the Codex is Kara Gallo, and my name is Kyle Olson.
The Codex is closed. For now.